Dave the Builder on KFM with Premier Timber Frame Homes, your expert guide to self-built homes. PremierTimberFrameHomes.ie.
Yeah, I have to say I'm looking forward to this. We've had it in the pipeline for quite some time, but delighted that it's week one of our brand new building slot with David McManus of Premier Timber Frame Homes. David, good to talk to you. Welcome to the studio. You're going to be here for the next number of weeks talking to us all about self-built homes. So looking forward to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No problem. So let's start off at the very start then. Tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about the company Premier Timber Frame Homes.
Yeah, so originally I'm from just outside Allenwood. I suppose I started my building career when I was 15 after my junior cert. I left school. I was very eager to, start working straight away. So I got a job with a local carpentry company, roofing and putting up timber frame houses in Kildare. And it started from there, and look, I'd done my 4 years apprenticeship, and the country it was around 07, 08, the country was actually crashing at the time. So I moved from carpentry to groundworking out in Navan. I'd done a couple of years out in Navan and just civil and groundworking, and then I ended up emigrating out to Australia in 2010. So I in Australia, we've done a range of different building stuff. One of them, the most exciting one that we were on, was a cyclone rebuild up in Darwin, Australia. So after a cyclone would come and, there'd be immense damage on the residential buildings around the place, we'd come in and we'd repair and do a lot of the work that was needed to do. From there I went from Australia to New Zealand. Christchurch in New Zealand was in 2012, 2011 was after having two astronomical earthquakes, and in 2012 I went to Christchurch and was on the Christchurch earthquake rebuild for over a year, and so we were doing everything from rebuilding the foundations, the houses, the roofs, the whole lot really. And I suppose just to move on from there, I was in America for a short while, and the UK as well. So UK, Scotland, erecting timber frame houses and so on. So it's all kind of based around that whole structural, timber frame foundation. So
you've been around the place. You didn't just decide I'm going to stay in around the Carberry, Allenwood area. You decided to go all around the place and take your trade as well. But it's something that I've talked about on the show before, and I think now it's getting more and more popular again, is people opting to go into apprenticeships and go into trades, because it's a very, very important job. Things don't get built without tradespeople.
Absolutely. And we're actually, funny you say that, we're actually Solace registered, so we have a number of apprentices with us now, and they're all from Allenwood and Carberry, which is great. But absolutely, there's less and less young people going into trades at the moment, and it's going to show. Not now, but in 10 or 15 years' time, we're going to have a big shortage,
And particularly, like we were talking about housing earlier on in the programme, and with the shortage of housing and the demand that is there, it's something that a lot of people are needed for. So tell us then where the company came from, Premier Timber Frame Homes. Did you set that up while you were out on your travels, or did you come back then, settle down and decide we'll set it up?
So on a holiday back from the UK, I actually bumped into my now better half fiance in our local nightclub or pub or whatever it was. It was Dowlands and Prospers, actually. a very romantic.
I was going to say a lot of love stories started there, yeah.
But so after I met her, she actually came out to England with me for a few months, and I was living out there and working, and she was doing the same, but she didn't like it out there. It was just, so in the end, after a few months, I came home. And to cut a long story short, within that year, she became pregnant, and obviously we needed somewhere to live, So been building timber frame houses for the last few years. I obviously chose a timber frame house, and we built it just before the baby arrived, and I suppose to make a long story short, when the house was just about finished, I was sitting up watching RT News one night, and I seen the housing crisis that was coming upon the island, and I said, God, I said, I wonder, I'll put my house up on Dundeal and see what happens, you know. So I got a couple of thousand views the first night after I put my house up on Dundeal, because it was slightly different looking than a traditional block house. I was after using a cladding system instead of a block finish, and a different roofing system than a tile, you know. So it was a little bit different looking, but it was very pleasing to the eye, and it was a little bit more affordable than, let's say, a block house. And that's where it all started, you know. My phone didn't stop ringing the next day after that Dundeal advertisement, and I knew then I was onto something.
Right, so that was your own house that you just built, that you put up on Dundeal, and after that then, did you sell it or did you stay in it?
No, we're still living in that today, right. You know, and you know, quite happily living in it, you know. Yeah. But
after that then you decided there's a market here for timber frame homes. How long ago are we talking?
So that was I started building in 2015. So we probably finished around 2016 when the baby came, you know, so that's how long it's been going on.
And things have obviously gone from strength to strength ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I started off in a shed that you couldn't swing a cat in, you know what I mean? Literally.
Yeah.
And we worked from there, rented the shed, and just around COVID time, I got the money together, myself and my partner got the money together, as to say, beg, borrow and steal. There was 10 acres up for sale in our local area with farm sheds on them, and we bought the 10 acres and renovated the farm sheds into a small factory, you know. So since then it's been getting stronger.
And you're kept busy. It's not just you know, limited to Kildare, the work that you're doing either. You're travelling all around the country. I know you're up in Cavan earlier this week as well, so you're quite busy.
Absolutely, yeah. We cover the country. We're on a job in Cavan there at the moment, and you know, we have one job in Kildare this year, but the majority of them are outside the county, so we'll go anywhere in the island. Right,
so in terms of what we're going to talk about then here on the programme over the next 10, 11, 12 weeks, what are we looking at discussing? Because it's something that people have often spoken to me about. I'd love to build our own house. If we got the planning permission, of course, we want to build our own house, but we don't know where to start. We don't know how to finance it. We don't know this, that or the other. So is it really just a guidebook on how to self-build?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose we talk to hundreds of people every year, and you know, the same question keeps coming, you know, at me. Where do I start? And people are very confused on who do I start? Where do I go to first? Do they come to me? Do they go to the architect? You know, they're very confused in that whole aspect. Now, what I would say is, I'd say give the likes of myself, the builder, maybe the finance guy and the architect a call. You can kind of call them simultaneously in the one day if you are planning something. But the big one, and not to put the cart before the horse, is actually to get your finance, figure out how much you can borrow before you build the house. And that's the key, because you don't want to design a lovely big house and then not have the funds then to build it.
Yeah, because that obviously would be heartbreaking. I mean, if you have an idea of what you want to do and you have this picture of a dream house in your mind, but then you fall at the first hurdle, is a huge thing, because people would often think, well, planning permission is obviously the first thing that you have to do, but that's not the case.
I definitely advise to figure out how much you can get. And once you can figure, then you can kind of reverse engineer, if you like. So let's say you can get 300,000. You know, you can go to your architect and say, well, we've been preliminarily approved for 300,000. Now, we need to get a house within that region, you know, 290, 310, you know, 300. You know, as I say, especially around COVID, and this is where we've seen this happen a lot, when the building, with the inflation and the building materials and so on, around 2020, people really weren't able to build. So they got the planning permission pre-COVID, and they weren't able to build the house they wanted then because of the inflation, you know. So that's where we're really seeing that.
Right, tell us what else then you're going to be discussing over the 12 weeks when it comes to self-building.
So in our own company, we also offer an architectural service, so we're able to bring people from the design stage. So we're going to be running through that, and the finance is kind of going to be kind of marry in with each other, you know. We'll be bringing them through the steps, and we'll cover all different aspects of building. I obviously specialise in timber frame and roofing, and we also have a big part to play into design. So we're bringing people from the design right through to a weather-tight structure. So all the elements of that, the foundation, There's different ways to build a foundation these days. It's not just your traditional dig out your foundation and pour your concrete. There is other ways of doing it now, and innovative ways. We'll bring you through the house building process, and we can dabble into stuff that I'm not directly involved in, like ICF and just different types of heating systems, different types of solar systems that you're using on the house, which is also quite important now,
And if anybody has questions over the next while as well, they can send those in and we can flag them with you as well, because there might be people who are already on the self-building journey. They might have a couple of questions that they want to ask you, or if they're thinking about starting out building a new house, then we can cover that as well. But there's also cost-effective ways of doing this, and some people often find that it's a lot cheaper to build your own house, and there are different materials that you use, like the timber frame is a cheaper way of doing it, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose when you're building a self-build house, you have to remember that you're technically now the project manager. If you're not hiring a project manager, now a project manager for a house is roughly 25,000 over the course of a standard house. But you're technically the project manager. Now because you're the project manager, you should incur you should save a lot of savings because you're doing that role. But there is it's not typically ideal, because let's say if you're not from a building background, you could make mistakes that will cost money. So you kind of have to be very careful, So let's say we kind of sell to a self-builder. So we're taking on a lot of the build, and we work out about 30% cheaper than a traditional block house, But we're kind of holding the customer's hand throughout the way, from architectural design, planning permission, helping with designs for the foundation, and so on. And then we leave you a weather-tight house, if you know what I mean. But that's where you would get cost saving there. But as I say, just for the listeners, just to be careful not to, if you're not in the building game, you could potentially make mistakes, Yeah,
I was looking just before we came on air this morning on your website, and some of the houses that you've worked on and the projects that you've worked on look absolutely fantastic. And as you say, they don't look like your typical house. They are a little bit different, but in a great way. So, look, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great feature. We're going to be here every single Thursday morning for the next 12 weeks at around 10:10, talking about different areas around self-building your homes. If people want to get in touch with you then, David, what's the best way to do it? Where can they find you, and where are you kind of most active?
So info@premiertimberframehomes.ie is our direct email address, and they're welcome to send in questions to our email address, or as you said to yourself, if they wanted. Our most activity is on social media. It would be Facebook would be our preliminary one, and then we're on TikTok, Instagram, and we're also on LinkedIn as well. So Premier Timber Frame Homes, and for the Instagram and TikTok it's Dave Premier Timber Frame Homes.